Ladies and gentlemen, it's Hot Legs, straight from the Wine Exchange, with wine expert Kyle Meyer.
Okay, well, welcome to Hot Legs. We're hearing rumblings out there. A lot of you are saying there's too much gosh darn Syrah in the market. California Syrah, to be exact. Seems like everybody and their mother is producing 300 or 400 cases of some kind of $60, I want to be mailing list only style Syrah, and everyone's getting kind of sick of it. Well, today I picked out 3 wines that we're going to try and fight the $60 Young Vine Syrah blues today, with 3 of what I think are the most exciting new producers of California Syrah to come along in the last few years. They may not be household names yet, but watch for these guys. They're really good. We're going to get right into it. We're going to start with the Kohler 2005 Santa Ynez Valley Syrah. Now, Corey Kohler bought this vineyard in 1997. Before then, it was owned, I forget who owned it beforehand, but all the grapes were sold. The vineyard used to furnish some of the best grapes in the Central Coast to a lot of other higher-end wineries to make, super-duper bottlings. And she thought, what the hey, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to make my own wine. It was a smart purchase. It's in a beautiful spot. There's a lot of older vines here, older by Central Coast standards, being 20 to 30 years old. And she was smart enough to hire a really top-flight winemaker by the name of Chris Stanton, who used to work in another winery called Mayo Family, who we've sold a ton of in the past. And he crafted some really brilliant Zinfandels and such for them over there. And she took a flyer with him, and looks like it's paying immediate dividends. 2005 was Chris's first vintage for Corey Kohler, and this is just an out-of-the-blue, sensational bottle of Syrah. I think it's 100% Syrah, although I'm not totally sure, but... And man, it's actually, maybe it's just me, I love French wine, but I love Australian Syrahs too. So it's not like just, oh, I'm only going to pick out ones that taste French. But to me, some of the better examples of California Syrah have a little bit of that French thing going. They have a sense of terroir, they have a sense of varietal character, and all 3 of these wines have it, although in varying degrees and stylistic shifts based on the producer in the area. Kohler's wine has a little bit of a wonderful sausagey character that I associate with, like the Crozes Hermitage area in the Northern Rhone, or Saint Joseph. Really kind of meaty. A little hint of white pepper. Robert Parker, I think, said this tasted like Hermitage. I don't know if it's quite like Hermitage, but it's a hell of a Crose for the money. This wine has something they can't exactly do in Crose Hermitage every year. This wine has really great sweetness of fruit on the mid-palate. You get a wonderful black cherry, plum. There's a little blackberry sneaking into there. And the flavors carry through the backside of the palate. The wine isn't too heavily oaked. It has a really nice balance. And wow, what a great wine for low 20s, I think $22, $23 a bottle. It was brought to our attention this year because Parker gave it 93 points. So we kind of fell into the trap of buying a scored wine. But after we tasted it, it lit us up. We were really impressed with the quality. Previous to Chris coming to the winery, Kohler had not made a wine this good. So obviously Chris has a lot to do with it, and one of the exciting new faces in California Syrah right now. The other exciting new face, Ben Davis. Ben Davis owned a wine shop in Florida, decided to get out of the wine shop business because he was a hardcore wine geek, and decided that he wanted to make this stuff instead of just sell it. So he hooked up with several different wineries in the north coast of California, and basically apprenticed for a few years. He got his chops, learned with a couple of the top guys, and basically opened up his own label. The label is called Tallulah, not a Tallulah Banks thing. It's named after Mary Tallulah Davis, his mom. And great label, isn't it? I love that package. And he makes basically single vineyard Syrah wines from 5 or 6 different sites throughout the North Coast. This one comes from the Shake Ridge Ranch in the Amador Foothills. It's a fairly new vineyard, but it's an exciting project because the Amador Foothills is usually a hot place, and Ben usually focuses on cooler climate sites. But the key here is, it has very cool nights. It's 1,800-foot elevation, and there's some wonderful vineyard work going on here. So Ben was smart enough to say, hey, this is good fruit. Just, hung a deal with him, and And here we are. Now here, get a little more of a junior Côte Rôtie thing. Now I'm comparing these wines to the famous Syrah-based wines from the Northern Rhone because that's kind of what they taste like. There's a little Côte Rôtie thing going on here. You get a little more blueberry in the fruit component. You get a little touch of bacon fat, which is really indicative of Côte Rôtie. A little less pepper than you'll see from that area. These are young vines. This is, to me, this wine has amazing complexity coming from younger vines. I don't think he finds or filters. You know, he's doing all the good, catchphrase things in the winery as well. You should. Huh? You know, if you don't have to do anything to your wine, you shouldn't. Texture, character, not too heavily oaked. These wines have a soul, you know, and it's so often that we see so many $40, $50 young vine Syrah wines on the market that have no soul. They're almost like Chardonnay. They're kind of juiced up with wood, simple, kind of clumsy. They're big, you know, everyone can extract the wines into oblivion, but they don't have touch. And here we have touch, which I don't know if you can describe it that much. You just have to taste it to know what I'm talking about. There's an ethereal nature to the wines and an elegance and a complexity that a lot of their peers don't have at twice the price. Good job, man. That's really smart wine. Also priced in the, mid-20s, $24, $25, which is a very good deal. Next, we're going to go to Pèlerin. Now, Pèlerin is the French term for pilgrim, and that's what Chris Weideman thinks he is. It's his humble journey to produce the finest wines from the Central Coast, namely the Santa Lucia Highlands, that he possibly can, and thus the name. Once again, package is really smart. Chris kind of did what Ben did, but a little more focus. He didn't own a wine shop. He, in fact, was just decided to, from an early age, get into winemaking. So he went to Davis and did the whole thing. And he was fortunate enough to apprentice or work with a couple really top-notch winemakers. One of them being John Kongsgaard, who that name might be familiar to some in the know. He was formerly from Newton Vineyards and has started his own label and basically is considered arguably the finest Chardonnay producer in California, as well as he makes one of the greatest Syrah wines in California. Now, Chris wasn't doing the North Coast thing. He decided to go to the Central Coast, and it was a smart move. He's focusing on the Santa Lucia Highlands and the Monterey area, and this comes from two different vineyards from around from that area, from Monterey and then the Santa Lucia Highlands. He doesn't use small oak barrels. He uses a little larger size oak barrel, so the wines don't taste oaky. Really minimal manipulation in the cellar. Once again, no fining, no filtration. And here you got that Frenchy thing going on again, man. I love it. I love it when these wines have that real smoky, peppery character to them, but with fruit. I mean, that's what you want. That's what a great vintage in the Northern Rhone is, right? I mean, it's when both those worlds collide. And there's an agenda here. These two different vineyards, which is about a 50-50 blend. One is a cool climate site, and the other one's a warm climate site. And sometimes this kind of way of making wine can, the two different areas can butt heads, right? But in this case, the two grape sourcings complement each other perfectly. You have the nice full middle from the warmer climate area, and you have the cooler climate leanings, the peppery, spicy, bacon fatty notes from the cooler zones. Around the same price as the Tallulah wine and the Kohler wine. Once again, like mid-20s. These are good. This gives me hope because there's so much overpriced California Syrah out there in the market that these three wines are really a breath of fresh air, and we encourage you to take a look at all three of these producers. They're to be commended for the work they're doing and the prices they're charging.